was the largest single lottery ticket jackpot in U.S. history. 2 weeks ago, a Powerball ticket for $759 million was sold in Chicopee, Massachusetts, to a 53-year-old hospital worker by the name of Mavis Wanchek.
Now from here, the winner may want to consider giving Omaha's retirement strategist, Bryant, a call.
Yes.
Daryl is one of the area's leading financial advisors. He hosts a weekly retirement radio show in Omaha that airs Saturday mornings on 1110 KFAB. And of course, he helps folks in Omaha make the financial transition into retirement. And today, we got a fun subject to talk about.
Yes, I'm finally ready. I'm here, I'm ready, I'm good to go. Outfit's good.
You're all set?
I'm
okay,
all
hair's
set
good?
now.
All right, good.
Yes.
So let's go.
Okay, Daryl, welcome back. So Mavis Wanchek said
Yes.
her first line of business is to retire early. That's good, right?
I would think so. Yeah, why wouldn't she? Yeah, she had I looked up some stats. She has a better possibility, she had a better possibility of being killed by an asteroid or struck by lightning while drowning than winning that lottery.
Wow.
Okay, so not the best retirement plan anyways, but why wouldn't she retire? She could have had how much? $700 and some odd million. She went for the lump sum. Now she has just $480. Then she'll pay some taxes on that, and that'll get whittled down to $288. But she certainly does have an opportunity now to really do something really, really neat, and that would be to create some real. I mean, $288 million is a lot of money, but she could really create some old money and create a legacy that would last a long, long time.
Generations
if she were to,
and generations.
What we would call generational wealth, yeah.
You know, I think people always wonder, and you dream when these come out, everybody talks about it when there's these big jackpots. Lump sum annual payments.
Sure.
Should you think about that in advance? What should you take?
Well, my first line of thinking would be if I take the smaller number and do so in a lump sum, then I get to control the outcome. Yeah, it's a smaller number, but I have no absolute guarantee that I'm going to continue to receive that stream of income, do I? That could just dry up somehow, financial collapse, etc. But if she does take the lump sum, yes, she has to pay an enormous amount of tax, but at least she controls things, and then she can make some decisions in terms of maneuvers with her attorney, with her estate planning attorney, and again, create enormous wealth that really nobody has the opportunity, to create. The same thing can be done, obviously, with smaller numbers, right? You don't have to have $288 million to create, wealth. But she certainly does have an opportunity now, and who can blame her for taking a lump sum and then controlling the outcome?
I would do the same thing.
I think so too.
Take the money and run, that's what we call that.
Well, you mentioned that, I mean, not everyone wins the lottery. So obviously there's other people that have to make these kind of financial decisions as well, right?
Right. Well, all week long we have people in that are saying, guess what, I would like to retire. Can I pull this thing off? What am I supposed to do with my dollars? Omaha has a very, very large population of seven-figure savers. In other words, investable assets at 7 figures, $1 million or more. So we're dealing with this in my office on a really, really regular basis. And so we'll have people who will come in, not necessarily with 288 million net dollars, but what if it's 1.2? What if it's 1.6? What if it's $800,000? This is still a big pile of money, and we need to manage this properly, set up a retirement plan that makes sense, make sure we're never going to run out of money in this case, and do some real math for people, and then take advantage of some, some tax breaks, some products that will generate lifetime income. That would be, it's just a lot of work to do, but we can snap it together pretty quick, at the office because we have the right software to do it.
Well, most of us, we could sit here and dream and be like, well, I'll worry about my retirement when I win. It's not going to happen. Like you said, getting struck by lightning when drowning is more likely. So if you are nearing retirement, you've got some major decisions to make about how and when to start saving, how to spend the money, and that's something you can help with.
Yeah, what it takes, what I found after, I've been doing this for 30 years, and what I found is that most of the software that's available, even for professionals out there, is either really, really too complicated for the average client. In other words, it's just way too much data. So we developed or it's just hard to thumb through and find the data that you need because there's just so much information. So we developed some software that will help our clients to see, we do this all day long, to see, here's what you want, here's what you want, $100,000 income or whatever the number is, okay? Here's what you have going toward that, meaning Social Security, cash rents, could be any number of things, pensions, etc. And so here's how much you're short, year over year. This is what you want to know. The most important thing if you're getting ready to retire is to know what we would call the red numbers. What is the year over year shortage? And you should have a shortage. even in the beginning. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're not going to have a shortage, then why did you, to satisfy them, why'd you save the money? Okay, so don't worry about having a shortage. The key is to set up, to segmentize or compartmentalize some time segments, and then simply fund those segments of time. And then everything comes together very, very quickly. It's really understandable, and we can see every year on the screen, on one big screen in the conference room, this is your retirement plan right here. And then the stress level comes down. Oh, there's a plan. I can see it. Here's what I want, here's what I have, here's how much I'm short, here's how it's going to be satisfied, here are the accounts that are doing it. Now we have ourselves a plan. And the problem is that, unfortunately, that need in my industry is not recognized. And so nobody's doing, from my experience, nobody's doing a lot of that kind of work.
Well, you recognize it, and you always bring a great deal. Today, 10 lucky viewers will get one of those distribution plans free today. All you have to do is call that number on your screen to see if you qualify. Here's the number to call, 932-2141. Once again, that's 402-932-21401.
Of course,
2141.
2141.
I'm all over the place today.
It's in there. It's in your mind now. And if you've got more information, if you want to check out Daryl's website, dbryantretirementstrategies.com, just drop in, be one of those first 10 callers, and think about that plan, because unfortunately, not all of us are going to be like Mavis.
Right.
So, interesting conversation today. I would totally take the lump sum, but in the meantime, I think smart planning makes more sense.
You know what? Everybody's money is important. It doesn't have to be $288 million.
I think it must be the $288.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There you go. Yeah, that'll get you through.
Nothing, right?
Yeah, get you through a weekend.
Right. It will. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Daryl.